What was the main secret of the Roman army's invincibility that historians ignored for centuries? We are accustomed to thinking that the legions of Rome conquered the world thanks to the sharpness of their gladiuses, the strength of their rectangular shields, or the genius of their commanders. However, the real reason for their triumph lies not in the metal of their weapons or the tactical maps of their generals. The foundation of an empire that stretched from the misty shores of Britain to the scorching sands of Syria was based on a simple but ingenious food system. It was the contents of the soldiers' mess kits that allowed them to march where others fell from exhaustion and build fortresses where others died of starvation. Watch the video to the end to find out how a cheap drink made from sour wine saved thousands of lives, and why Roman legionnaires feared losing their grain bags more than their own swords. What if I told you that everything you believed when looking at marble statues hides the harsh truth about the severity of a soldier's life? A Roman legionnaire was not just a warrior, but a real pack mule, carrying the weight of an entire civilization on his shoulders. Each soldier carried not only weapons and armor, but also a personal supply of food for at least 3 days, and sometimes up to 2 weeks. The weight of this food ration often exceeded the weight of the weapons themselves, turning the march into a test of human endurance. This was the price that had to be paid for autonomy and independence from slow-moving supply trains. The basis of this load was grain, which made up the lion's share of any soldier's diet on the march. Wheat did not spoil in the heat, did not rot from dampness as quickly as meat, and took up relatively little space in a campaign bag. Each legionnaire received a certain amount of grain, which he was obliged to store, protect, and carry himself. Losing this bag meant condemning oneself to starvation, as there might not be any extra supplies in the unit. Grain was the currency of survival, more valuable on long campaigns than silver denarii. Interestingly, the Roman command did not issue ready-made bread to soldiers, preferring to distribute raw grain. This decision was dictated purely by pragmatic considerations of logistics and food storage times. Ready-made bread quickly became stale, moldy, and unfit for consumption after just a few days of travel. Grain, protected by a thick shell, could be stored for months, waiting for the moment when it would be turned into food. Thus, the legion carried with it not just food, but preserved energy for future battles. The process of turning grain into food was a daily evening ritual that took the last of the weary men's strength. After marching for many kilometers and building a fortified camp, the soldiers took out their hand mills. These stone devices were heavy and cumbersome, but absolutely necessary for every small detachment. The sound of grinding grain became the main melody of the Roman evening, drowning out conversations and the sound of the wind. Without this hard work, the grain would have remained useless ballast. The coarsely ground flour was used to make porridge, which was called pulse. It was a thick, filling concoction, far from the exquisite feasts of the Roman nobility, but ideal for restoring strength. Pulse was easy to prepare, requiring only water, a pot, and fire, which made it a versatile dish. Sometimes fat, vegetables, or herbs were added to the porridge if they could be found along the way. It was this simple porridge, not exquisite delicacies, that built the roads and aqueducts of Europe. Many people mistakenly believe that Roman soldiers ate only bread and water. In fact, their diet was carefully balanced to maintain high physical activity. Commanders understood perfectly well that soldiers could not survive on wheat alone, especially in cold climates. Therefore, they always tried to add something that contained protein and fat to the grain. The energy value of such rations reached several thousand calories per day. The weight of the food that soldiers carried was carefully calculated by quartermasters. The Roman bureaucracy, scrupulous and meticulous, knew exactly how much grain a person needed to walk 30 kilometers and build a palisade. No extra grams were allowed, as every extra kilogram slowed down the army's movement. It was the mathematics of war, where calories were converted into kilometers of conquered territory. A mistake in calculations could cost the legion its combat effectiveness even before encountering the enemy. The soldiers themselves often joked about their fate, calling themselves Maria's mules in honor of the commander who reformed the army. This reform forced them to carry all their belongings on themselves, abandoning huge supply trains. Despite the burden, this system gave the legions incredible mobility and speed of movement. Rome's enemies were often caught off guard, not expecting the army to arrive so soon. Speed was a weapon, and the food on their backs was the fuel for that weapon. Surprisingly, it was this heavy burden that made the Roman soldier the freest warrior of his time. He did not depend on the whims of suppliers, carts stuck in the mud, or looted warehouses. Everything they needed to live for the coming week hung from their shoulders on a special pole. This autonomy allowed them to make deep raids into enemy territory. The legion was a self-sufficient organism that carried its life with it. Imagine a modern tourist going on a hike with a heavy backpack and double his load. The Romans performed this feat daily for years in all weather conditions and on all types of terrain. Their endurance was the result not only of training, but also of this diet that they had to carry with them. I'm very interested to hear your point of view. What do you think about a system where soldiers are also required to carry their own food? Write about it in the comments. Want to know a secret that will change your perception of ancient hygiene and medicine? The main drink of the Roman army, the very secret liquid that saved them from disease, was not pure water or expensive wine. This drink was Posca, a mixture of water and wine vinegar, sometimes with the addition of herbs. To modern people, this sounds strange, but for a Roman legionnaire, a flask of sour liquid was the key to survival. Posca was a ubiquitous companion of the army, from the hot deserts of Africa to the snowy forests of Germany. Why did vinegar become the basis of the main army drink of the greatest empire? The answer lies in its unique disinfecting properties, which the Romans discovered empirically. The water from the rivers, lakes, and streams encountered by the legion was often unsafe to drink. Adding wine vinegar killed some of the disease-causing bacteria and made the water safe to drink. It was a simple, cheap, and effective means of preventing intestinal infections. In addition to disinfection, the sour taste of Posca was excellent for quenching thirst, which was critically important during long marches. Sweet water or pure wine only increased the desire to drink, while acidified liquid refreshes. Soldiers could drink it in large gulps without fear of becoming intoxicated and losing their combat effectiveness. It was, in essence, an ancient isotonic drink that restored strength after strenuous physical exertion. The taste of vinegar also helped to mask the musty smell of stagnant water. Posca often contained cheap herbs that added vitamins to the meager soldier's diet. Vitamin C, which was found in wine vinegar and herbal supplements, was especially important. This helped prevent scurvy, a disease that could wipe out an army faster than enemy arrows. Thus, a simple drink served as a powerful preventive measure. The health of soldiers was the empire's main resource, and Posca protected it. Posca was a democratic drink that united ordinary soldiers and commanders in difficult times. It is known that even emperors wishing to show their closeness to the people and share the hardships of the campaign drank Posca in full view of everyone. Hadrian and Trajan, great commanders, did not disdain this sour drink, strengthening their authority among the soldiers. Refusing wine in favor of Posca was considered a manifestation of military discipline and asceticism. It was a symbol that there was no place for excess in war. It is important to understand that Posca was not spoiled wine that was too good to throw away. It was a specially prepared product that was produced in huge quantities. Wine vinegar was stable, easy to transport in barrels, and did not spoil over time. The concentrate could be diluted with water in any proportion, which made supply logistics very flexible. 1 barrel of vinegar could be turned into hundreds of liters of drinkable Posca. In hot climates, Posca saved legionnaires from heat stroke and dehydration. The acid stimulated salivation, relieving the painful feeling of dry mouth during marches in dusty conditions. Soldiers dipped a sponge in Posca and wiped their faces to refresh themselves. It was a universal remedy that was used both internally and externally. Even wounds were sometimes washed with this liquid to prevent suppuration. Roman doctors also noted the benefits of Posca for digestion, especially with a monotonous diet of grains. The acid helped the stomach digest coarse food, preventing heaviness and bloating. In conditions where soldiers ate dry bread or thick porridge, this was extremely important. Legionnaires knew that a flask of Posca on their belt was their personal first aid kit. Neglecting this drink was considered foolish. Comparing Posca to modern energy drinks would not be entirely accurate, but functionally they are similar. It provided energy, protected the body, and maintained water and salt balance. Without this simple invention, Roman conquest could have been stifled by dysentery epidemics. The history of Rome smells not only of incense, but also of the pungent smell of vinegar. However, liquid was only part of the survival equation. In the next chapter, you will learn about bread that was so hard that it could break your head and could be stored for decades. What I'm about to show you is banned as food in 12 countries, but for the Romans it was the norm. I am talking about Buccellatum, the legendary Roman cracker that became the prototype for the modern army biscuit. It was not the soft and fragrant bread we are used to seeing on the table. Buccellatum was a twice-baked flatbread made of flour and water, devoid of any moisture. It was as hard as a rock, and its main purpose was not to please the palate, but to be stored forever. The technology for making this product was perfected. The flatbreads were baked at a low temperature for a very long time to evaporate every last drop of water from the dough. Without moisture inside, mold and bacteria could not develop in the bread. Such a rusk could lie in a soldier's bag for months without losing its nutritional properties. Archaeologists find fossilized remains of such galettes, which have survived for thousands of years. To eat Buccellatum, it had to be soaked beforehand. Chewing it dry was dangerous for the teeth and practically impossible. Soldiers dipped the biscuits in porridge, water, soup, or wine, if they had any. The soaked biscuit turned into a kind of porridge or soft bread, filling the stomach. It was a ritual that required time and patience. A hole was usually made in the center of each biscuit before baking. This was not for beauty, but for convenience in transportation and storage. A rope or strap was threaded through the hole, stringing the rusks into long bundles. Soldiers could easily attach such a bundle to their equipment or hang it on a pole. This saved space in their bags and allowed the bread to air out. Buccellatum was the perfect solution for extreme situations. During a siege, a long sea voyage, or a rapid march, when there was no time to grind grain and bake fresh flatbread, rusks saved lives. They were light, compact, and incredibly calorie-dense. A few of these stones could provide a soldier with energy for a whole day of battle. Interestingly, the word buccella itself comes from the word buccella, which means piece or bite. Later in the Byzantine era, this root gave rise to a word meaning exquisite bread. But originally, it was the coarsest food. It was the food of tough men who did not expect pleasures from life. Food was perceived exclusively as fuel for war. The quality of the flour for rusks could vary, but whole wheat was most often used. It contained a lot of fiber and provided a long feeling of satiety. Sometimes salt was added to the dough, but no yeast or leaven was used. Yeast bread would spoil too quickly, while unleavened rusks were practically eternal. Despite its hardness and simplicity, Buccellatum was a symbol of stability. As long as a soldier had a bundle of rusks, he knew he would not starve in the coming days. This gave him the confidence he needed far from home. Quartermasters made sure that the fortress warehouses were always stocked with biscuits. This product became the great-grandfather of all modern dry rations. The idea of dehydrating a product for long-term storage, invented in ancient times, is still used today. The Romans did not invent the tin can, but they did invent canned bread. Their logic was flawless. Food must be functional. Today, we would hardly eat such food of our own free will, but for a legionnaire, it was the taste of life. Every bite of this rock-hard bread brought him closer to victory or to returning home. Like this video if you were surprised by this technology, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos about the secrets of antiquity. What if everything you've been taught is outdated? There is a persistent myth that Roman legionnaires were practically vegetarians and only ate meat on major holidays. Supposedly, a grain-based diet was the basis of their incredible endurance and discipline. However, modern archaeological excavations at Roman military camps in Britain, Germany, and Jordan paint a completely different picture. The ground is literally littered with the bones of animals that were eaten by soldiers. It turns out that the Romans loved meat and ate it whenever they could. Pork was the most popular type of meat in the Roman army, especially in the western provinces. Soldiers raised pigs right next to their camps, or requisitioned them from the local population. Pigs are not picky eaters, grow quickly, and provide a lot of nutritious fat. Lard and bacon, laridum, were strategic reserves that stored well. Beef and lamb also regularly appeared in the legionnaires' pots. Cow and sheep bones are found in huge quantities in the garbage pits of forts. Animals were often driven behind the army as live canned food, slaughtered as needed. This solved the problem of preserving fresh meat in hot weather. Fresh meat was roasted on grills or cooked in communal pots. Hunting was not only entertainment, but also an important way to supplement the diet. The forests of Europe were home to a huge amount of game: deer, wild boar, hares, and birds. Legionnaires, many of whom came from rural areas, were excellent hunters. Deer antlers and boar tusks are common finds in the archaeological layers of Roman garrisons. The variety of game depended on the region where the legion was stationed. The myth of the grain diet arose from a misinterpretation of ancient texts. Some sources mention that soldiers complained when they had to eat only meat without bread. For Romans, bread was the basis of the meal, and meat was a supplement, and the absence of bread was perceived as deprivation. But this does not mean that they refused meat when it was available. Roman doctors understood the value of animal protein for muscle recovery and wound healing. A weak, emaciated soldier could not carry heavy armor and fight in hand-to-hand combat. Therefore, commanders tried to provide their troops with meat by signing contracts with local suppliers. Tablets with financial reports have survived, listing purchases of huge quantities of ham and pork. Smoking and drying were the main methods of preserving meat in field conditions. Ham from Gaul was famous throughout the empire and was even supplied to remote garrisons. Dried meat was light, did not spoil, and could be eaten without cooking. It was another type of concentrate that complemented crackers. Fish and seafood were also not uncommon, especially for legions stationed near rivers or the sea. The Romans loved the fish sauce, garum, which was added to almost all dishes for flavor and saltiness. Amphorae with the remains of fish sauces have been found even in the most remote corners of the empire. This indicates a complex supply system that delivered favorite flavors thousands of kilometers away. So the image of a legionnaire chewing only dry barley cakes is far from reality. These were strong men who ate a lot, heartily and variedly, when conditions allowed. Their diet was that of conquerors, taking the best from nature and the conquered peoples. Meat gave them strength, aggression, and energy for conquest. Meat is good, but how did they prepare it? In the next chapter, you will learn what the kitchen looked like inside the smallest combat unit of the Roman army. The daily life of a Roman soldier began and ended not with battle against the enemy, but with an endless struggle with grain. As we have already mentioned, the issuance of raw products imposed on soldiers the obligation to process them themselves. Legionnaires were not given ready-made loaves of bread, but rather a sack of heavy grain that still had to be turned into food. This was not just a culinary task, but hard physical work that took the last of their strength after a march. Each soldier received about 800 grams of grain per day, and this amount had to be prepared for consumption. The process of grinding by hand required considerable time and physical effort. The device consisted of two heavy stones that rubbed against each other, turning hard grains into flour suitable for baking. Usually one soldier poured the grain into the opening at the top, while another turned the handle with force. This task was so exhausting that the soldiers took turns turning the mill handle, changing every half hour. Their hands quickly tired from the monotonous rotation, and their backs began to ache no less than from carrying a heavy shield. White flour dust covered their weather-beaten faces and clothes, mixing with road dirt and sweat. The camp was filled with a characteristic noise. The grinding of hundreds of stones merged into a single hum, which was the music of the Roman evening. For many, it was a kind of meditation after a day full of danger, anxiety, and military training. The monotonous work helped calm their nerves and switch their thoughts from war to home and dinner. The quality of the flour obtained depended directly on the diligence of the soldiers and the degree of wear and tear on the stones. No matter how hard they tried, under field conditions, the flour was usually coarsely ground. It contained a lot of bran, pieces of grain husks, and sometimes even fine stone chips from the millstones. It was a terrible insult to a proud Roman soldier to eat food fit only for cattle or slaves. The whole camp saw the punished cohort chewing barley cakes, and this served as a vivid lesson in discipline. A return to the wheat ration had to be earned through exceptional bravery in battle or hard work on construction projects. Commanders used food as a powerful lever to control the morale of the troops. Food was cooked on open fires, which were lit right in front of the tents. Each contubernium had its own set of utensils: a bronze pot, a frying pan, a spit, and knives. The soldiers themselves decided what and how to cook from the food they were given each day. There were no army cooks here, so culinary skills were valued by comrades no less than the ability to wield a sword. Usually the main dish was a thick soup called pools. Everything the detachment had on hand was thrown into boiling water: ground grain, pieces of salted bacon, onions, and local vegetables. If they managed to obtain fresh meat while hunting or requisitioning, it was also thrown into the common pot. The appetizing smell of smoke and cooking enveloped the camp every evening, creating a feeling of comfort in a foreign country. The absence of a centralized field kitchen, where cooks would prepare food for the entire legion at once, had its own hidden, deeper meaning. The Roman command deliberately supported a system of independent cooking in small groups. This incredibly united these 8 people, making them a real family far from home. They ground grain together, gathered firewood together, cooked together, and ate together from the same pot. Grain was not only food for Rome, but also an important strategic resource that influenced the course of the war. A well-supplied garrison could hold out in a besieged fortress for years if the granaries were full of wheat. The loss of a grain convoy often meant the failure of the entire military campaign and retreat. Therefore, protecting grain supplies was a priority for any commander. Dishonest commanders who decided to profit from their soldiers often began their machinations with food. They reduced the daily grain ration or mixed sand and dust into good flour to increase its weight. The soldiers quickly noticed the deception, and this caused a wave of muttering in the tents. It is historically known that many bloody riots in the army began precisely with dissatisfaction with the quality of bread. The ability to handle grain, store it properly from moisture and ubiquitous rodents, was an important military skill. Each unit had experienced people who knew how to dry grain that had gotten wet in the rain so that it would not mold. They knew how to determine whether the supply was infested with bugs or poisonous ergot. This practical wisdom was passed down from gray-haired veterans to young recruits as secret knowledge. A soldier in the Roman army was not only a professional warrior, but also a baker, miller, and porter. His survival depended on his ability to provide himself with calories in any conditions, even the most extreme. He had to be able to cook an edible dinner from a handful of grain and water in the middle of the desert or in the forest. This versatility made the legions autonomous and incredibly resilient. The Roman Empire was, in essence, a great grain empire built on control over bread resources. The conquest of wealthy Egypt and the fertile lands of North Africa was dictated by the need to feed a huge army and the population of the Eternal City. The legions went where the grain grew, expanding the borders for new farmland. And every evening, under any sky, thousands of stone millstones turned, grinding history and creating the greatness of Rome. Are you ready for the shocking truth? The Roman army was built not on drill, but on shared meals. The smallest but strongest unit of the legion was the contubernium, a group of 8 men. These men lived in the same tent, slept side by side, and, most importantly, ate together. The word contubernalis, fellow soldier, literally translates as tent mate, but its meaning is much deeper. It is a person with whom you share bread. Preparing dinner was not just a matter of satisfying hunger, it was an important social ritual. In a world where death could come at any moment, eating together created a sense of home and security. Everyone in the group had their own role. Some went to gather firewood, some fetched water, some tended the fire, and some cooked. Refusal to participate in communal activities was unthinkable and led to isolation. The dishes and kitchen utensils belonged to the group, not to individual soldiers. Bronze pots, patera, ladles, knives, and skewers were shared property that was carefully guarded. The loss of a pot was a tragedy for the whole group of 8, as there would be nothing to cook with. Archaeologists often find such dishes with the names of their owners or the name of the century scratched on them. The dinner menu depended on imagination and available ingredients. If they managed to get garlic, onions, or local roots, the taste of bland porridge changed dramatically. Soldiers exchanged recipes and cooking tips. A veteran could teach a young soldier how to properly roast meat in the coals or how to make soup thicker. During meals, conversations took place. News, orders from commanders, and rumors were discussed. It was around the campfire that the Legion's public opinion was formed. This is where legends about heroes and villains were born, where conspiracies and rebellions matured. Officers knew that if you wanted to know the mood of the troops, you had to listen to what they were talking about around the cooking pots. This system of micro-collectives made the army incredibly resilient. Even if the formation fell apart in battle, soldiers instinctively sought out their bunkmates. They fought not for an abstract empire, but for the specific 7 guys with whom they had eaten porridge the day before. It was a bond stronger than steel. Meals in the contubernium were also a form of control. If one of the soldiers fell ill or lost his appetite, his comrades were the first to notice. They could take care of the sick man, share their portion, or report to the commander. In the context of epidemics, such mutual attentiveness saved lives. Interestingly, officers, centurions, ate separately from the rank and file, but according to similar principles. They had more opportunities to diversify their diet, but the basis remained the same. Ostentatious luxury in food on a military campaign was not encouraged and could provoke the hatred of the soldiers. The Brotherhood of the mess tin continued after service. Veterans who received land and retired often settled near their former comrades. The bonds forged by years of shared meals remained unbroken until death. Thus, the Roman army turned the mundane process of eating into a powerful tool for unity. Food brought people of different backgrounds together, turning the crowd into a single monolith. But food without salt is not food. What if salt was more expensive than money? In the next chapter, you will learn why we still use a word associated with salt when we talk about salary. In the ancient world, salt was not just a spice, but a vital strategic resource. For Roman soldiers, it had double value, as a necessary element of nutrition and as a means of preserving food. The word salary in many European languages, e.g. English, comes from the Latin salarium, money given to soldiers to buy salt. This highlights how critical this white powder was to the military machine. In hot climates, with constant physical exertion and heavy armor, soldiers lost huge amounts of salt through sweat. A lack of sodium in the body led to cramps, weakness, dizziness, and even death. Therefore, salt balance was a matter of combat readiness. Legionnaires instinctively added salt to their food and water to replenish what their bodies lost. But the main role of salt was in preservation. Without refrigerators, the only way to preserve meat or fish was to salt it heavily. Salted meat could be stored for months without losing its nutritional properties. Before consumption, it often had to be soaked in water to remove excess salt. But this was a small price to pay for having protein-rich food. The Roman army consumed enormous amounts of salt. Salt carts were guarded as carefully as a treasury of gold. The capture of enemy salt mines or warehouses was considered a major strategic victory. The Romans built special roads, the Via Salaria, Salt Road, to ensure uninterrupted supplies of this resource to Rome and its troops. In addition to meat, vegetables, cheese, and even olives were salted. This allowed for a more varied winter diet when fresh produce was unavailable. Salted cheese was an excellent source of calcium and protein, compact and tasty. It was a popular snack during breaks. Salt was also used for medical purposes. It was used to wash wounds and in ointments and rubs. Salt was believed to cleanse and disinfect. Although it was painful, this method often prevented gangrene and blood poisoning in the field. Each soldier carried a small supply of salt in a personal pouch. This was a sacred reserve in case the supply train fell behind. Sharing salt with a comrade was a sign of the highest regard and friendship. Refusing to share salt was considered an insult. Salt production was a state monopoly. Rome controlled salt works throughout Europe, from Britain to the Black Sea. The technologies for evaporating seawater or extracting rock salt were well developed. Legion engineers often participated in establishing production in new territories. Salt even influenced the taste of Roman bread. Unseasoned bread quickly became boring, while salted bread seemed tastier and more filling. This small taste pleasure was important for the psychological comfort of the soldiers. Food had to bring at least some joy. Thus, white crystals were the fuel that powered the empire. Without salt, the legions would not have been able to go so far from home. It was an invisible but indispensable element of Roman success. Roman logistics were magnificent, but even they had their failures. When the supply trains fell behind or ran out of supplies, the legionaries switched to foraging. The ability to find food in the forest, in the fields, or in a foreign village was an important survival skill. A Roman soldier was not only a warrior, but also a gatherer, able to feed himself with the gifts of nature. Foraging was an organized activity. Special detachments were sent out to search for food in the vicinity of the camp. They gathered everything: wild fruits, nuts, berries, edible roots, and mushrooms. Knowledge of botany was necessary to avoid poisoning oneself and one's comrades with poisonous plants. Local guides often helped the Romans distinguish between edible and inedible plants. In the conquered regions, foraging often turned into requisitioning. Legionnaires took grain, livestock, wine, and oil from the local population. It was cruel, but war required resources. War feeds war. This principle has always been relevant. However, smart commanders tried not to completely ruin the population so as not to provoke hunger riots in the rear. Soldiers knew how to fish in any body of water. Hooks, nets, and spears were part of many legionnaires' equipment. Fresh fish was an excellent addition to the tiresome porridge. Fish was abundant in the rivers of Gaul and the Danube, and it often saved troops from starvation. They also collected honey from wild bees. It was the only available source of sugar and a powerful energy source. Honey was used not only for food, but also as a medicine for treating wounds and colds. Finding a hollow tree with honey was a real treat for the contubernia. In the southern provinces, the diet was enriched with figs, dates, and olives. These high-calorie fruits were an excellent snack on the march. Legionnaires quickly got used to the local cuisine and adopted the eating habits of the conquered peoples. The gastronomic map of the empire expanded along with its borders. Experienced soldiers carried vegetable and herb seeds with them. During long stops, small vegetable gardens were quickly set up around the camp. Onions, garlic, turnips, cabbage, and beans were grown there. Fresh greens were the best prevention against disease. Hunting small game with snares and traps saved energy. Soldiers were taught how to set snares for hares in training camps. This provided meat without much fuss or time. Even hedgehogs and dormice could end up in the pot in difficult times. The ability to adapt to local conditions made the Roman army versatile. They could fight in the desert, eating dates, and in the forests of Britain, eating venison and berries. Flexibility in food was as important as flexibility in tactics. Nature was both enemy and provider for the legionary. He learned to take everything it could give, turning the resources of any terrain to his advantage. Behind every legionnaire stood an invisible army of drivers, mule drivers, sailors, and scribes, whose labor often went unnoticed. We are used to seeing pictures of heroic warriors in shining armor, but they were not the only ones who forged victory. Without the thousands of people providing support, the most formidable military machine of antiquity would have ground to a halt within a few days. The Roman supply system was a true marvel of the ancient world, and a complex mechanism that ran like clockwork. Feeding a legion of 5,000 men required tons of grain, oil, and wine every day. And that's not counting animal feed, firewood, and spare equipment. The scale of consumption was such that a single army could consume the resources of an entire region in a week. Without this well-oiled system, even the bravest and most trained warriors would have turned into a crowd of hungry vagabonds. Hunger killed armies faster and more reliably than enemy arrows. The basis of all imperial logistics was the famous roads, whose network covered the entire civilized world. The famous Roman roads were built primarily not for trade, but for the rapid movement of the army. Engineers laid them straight as an arrow, cutting through hills and building bridges over turbulent rivers. They understood that the speed of troop movement was the main guarantee of victory over any enemy. These roads were paved with stone and had a complex, multi-layered base, which made them practically eternal. This design allowed heavy carts carrying grain to move quickly in any weather without getting stuck in the mud. Even heavy rains could not stop the flow of supplies to the front. Warehouses and post stations were located at regular intervals along the roads. Here, couriers and carters could change tired animals, eat, and replenish their water supplies. It was the empire's lifeblood, through which resources and orders circulated. However, land transport was slow and expensive, so the Romans preferred water. Sea and river transport was much cheaper and faster, allowing huge loads to be moved. Grain from fertile Egypt, Africa, and Sicily was delivered to Rome and the provinces by huge fleets. Special grain ships sailed the Mediterranean Sea, connecting granaries with consumers. Thousands of papyri and wooden tablets with boring economic records have survived to this day. They tell us how much lentils the second cohort ate and how much vinegar was given to the third. Corruption and theft, of course, always existed, but in the army they were severely punished. A quartermaster caught stealing faced harsh punishment, up to and including a public execution in front of the troops. The legion never went on a long march without securing reliable rear bases. Before the offensive, advanced supply bases were set up, where mountains of food and ammunition were brought in advance. The commander always knew exactly how many days his army would have enough food away from the bases. The risk of being left without provisions in the middle of enemy territory was considered an unacceptable display of stupidity. Planning for war always began with careful planning of supplies and routes. Generals spent hours poring over maps, calculating the travel time of supply trains and places to forage. They knew that a battle lasted one day, but a campaign could drag on for months. Strategy was inextricably linked to the economics of war. Animals also needed food, and this was a huge logistical problem. Thousands of mules, oxen, and war horses needed fodder and clean water every day. Providing the army with hay and oats was no less difficult than feeding people. Horses cannot go without food as long as humans can and quickly lose strength without proper care. The floor in such storages was specially raised above the ground on stone pillars. This was done to protect the precious grain from the dampness coming from the soil. In addition, this design prevented rats and mice from getting inside and destroying the supplies. The Romans fought for the preservation of every grain with a scientific approach. Local authorities in conquered or allied territories were required to pay taxes and food. This system, called the annona, shifted a significant part of the supply burden to the provinces. Local peasants had to deliver part of their harvest to army warehouses as tribute. This allowed the army to feed itself from the resources of the land it protected. Provincial governors were personally responsible for ensuring that the legions in their territory were fed. If famine broke out in the garrisons, the official's career would end, and often his life as well. The center demanded uninterrupted supplies and accepted no excuses for crop failures. The political stability of the region depended directly on the fullness of the soldiers' stomachs. This system was incredibly expensive and difficult to manage, requiring an army of officials. But it was this system that gave Rome a decisive advantage over any enemy. Rome's enemies, mainly barbarian tribes, did not have such developed logistics. They lived by raiding and taking whatever they could carry away or take from the population. The barbarians could not keep large armies in one place for long and wage protracted wars. They quickly ate everything around them, devastating the surrounding area, and began to starve, which forced them to disperse. The Romans, on the other hand, could lay siege to an enemy fortress for years, methodically tightening the ring. They received grain from thousands of kilometers away, and their soldiers were always full of strength. Victory was forged not only on the battlefield amid the clang of swords, but also in the silence of warehouses. It was born in ports where sacks were loaded and on roads where carts creaked. A Roman quartermaster with a calculator and a scroll was as dangerous to the enemy as a legionnaire with a sword. It was logistics that made Rome an eternal city, capable of projecting its power throughout the known world. Ultimately, this complex system of nutrition, logistics, and discipline created a unique product, the body of a Roman legionnaire. It was a biological machine tuned for war, endurance, and work. A diet rich in carbohydrates, grain, supplemented with protein, meat, cheese, and vitamins, olives, vegetables, produced strong and wiry people. Roman soldiers were shorter than modern people, and often shorter than their Germanic or Gallic opponents. But he surpassed them in endurance. He could march all day with a load of 40 cauldron, and by evening build a fortified camp, digging ditches and erecting palisades. This work capacity was a direct result of a regular and high-calorie diet. Skeletal remains of soldiers show that they were muscular, with developed bones accustomed to heavy loads. Their teeth were often worn down from coarse food and stone chips from millstones, but overall their health was strong for that time. Signs of serious malnutrition in soldiers are extremely rare compared to the civilian population. The legionnaires' immunity was strengthened by a constant life in the fresh air and simple food. They suffered less from diseases of civilization, such as obesity or diabetes. Their main threats were infections and wounds, but good nutrition increased their chances of recovery. An organism that receives sufficient resources fights better for its life. Psychological resilience also depended on food. A hungry soldier is an angry and demoralized soldier. Regular hot meals maintain morale and confidence in the command. Legionnaires knew they were being cared for and repaid this with loyalty. The training of the Roman army was grueling and required enormous energy expenditure. Training battles were fought with weapons that were twice as heavy as combat weapons. To withstand such a regime, high-quality fuel was needed. The Roman diet provided just that level of energy. Comparisons with the barbarians often did not favor the latter precisely because of their diet. Barbarian armies suffered from food shortages, feasted after victories, and starved for weeks after defeats. The Roman machine worked steadily without sudden jumps. It was this consistency that brought victory in long campaigns. Even after retirement, veterans retained their habits of healthy and simple eating. They lived to a ripe old age, which was rare in antiquity. Many of them became farmers, continuing to feed the empire with their labor. The Roman legionnaire is an example of how proper organization of life and nutrition can turn an ordinary person into a super efficient warrior. It was not magic or genes, but porridge, vinegar, and discipline that created the conquerors of the world. The history of Roman cuisine is the history of Roman power. By understanding what and how they ate, we begin to understand who they really were. We have come a long way following the Roman legions, peering into their mess kits and provisions bags. Now you know that the secret of their invincibility lay not in secret rituals, but in a brilliantly simple life support system. Posca, Buccellatum, grain rations. These humble heroes of antiquity did more for the greatness of Rome than many emperors. They allowed ordinary people to do extraordinary things, overcoming nature and distance. What did you find most surprising or perhaps most disgusting about the Roman legionnaires' diet? Would you dare to try real Posca? Share your opinion in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to learn more about the hidden mechanisms of history.